So some of you may have seen a blog post that you put up last week about the origins of Venmo and how things came about. What inspired you to kind of put those thoughts, down on a digital format and commemorate everything?
That's like telling the story of like how Iqram and I met each other and how we started Venmo is like my go-to story for something like this. I'll tell it a lot, like when I'm out on a college campus or speaking at an event. I tell it for intern classes at Venmo. Should we turn off one of these and use one? How's that? Better? Okay. I'll tell it for intern classes, and I've been telling that story for like probably 3 years, and it's to the point where like I had it pretty nailed down, and I felt it was like time to write it down and as a more scalable way to share it. And so, in a way, I've been like working on that blog post for like 3 years.
So you mentioned in the blog post that Iqram studied computer science, and you had started to do computer science, but then you wanted to switch to something that you knew you would probably not get to study or do after college. You feel pretty good about that decision? I mean, you wish you would have done more computer science and engineering work, and given the path you took?
I wish I had been better prepared for a computer science curriculum. I think if you took the time to learn how to write software in any language before going to college, like in high school, you could get a lot out of a sort of computer science theory, data structures, algorithms type of track. But I didn't really have that background, so I spent a lot of the time in my classes like just learning how to program, which is not something I think is worth paying for. And then as far as like majoring in computer science, depending on like how technical you want to get, like and what you want to do with it, I think it could be a good thing. But for me, it was more, I was interested in writing software as a way to like manifest the ideas that I had. So I was pretty happy like minoring in computer science and then studying philosophy and writing. And that stuff actually, I remember having a conversation with someone about when I was switching to study like the least practical things possible, and kind of like rejecting professional life, and just being like kind of like a pure academic. But it actually turned out that when you study philosophy, or literature or any of the humanities really, I think you're just ingesting like huge amounts of data and ideas, and then your job as an undergraduate humanities student is to sort of synthesize all that, figure out what the key arguments are, and then say whether the author was successful in arguing a particular point. And I think that sort of like dialectic is a great tool in the professional world to, unless you're running a company like an autocracy and just saying like we're going to do this because I'm in charge and I said we're going to do this. I think dialectic and argument is a good way to get to consensus and like get a bunch of people with different ideas towards like an objective truth or like a decision that everyone feels good about.
Yeah, and it sounds like even though you didn't maybe major in it, you were doing a number of side projects during school.
Yeah.
So like what were those projects and how did they kind of prepare you for what eventually became the Venmo project?
I just always was interested in the internet also. So I would make I made a website. Iqram had a band, I made a website for his band.
Really?
Yeah.
What's the name of his band?
Marquee.
Okay.
So it was him and his buddy Mark, but it was like an anagram of Iqram.
I see.
I made a website for like a bunch of different clubs I was in and like the dorm I was in and all sorts of things like that. And then my senior year, Iqram and I made a website called My Campus Post, which is for like a private classifieds website for college students. So I don't know. I just always like the idea of like the internet makes it really easy to get something out there to the world and like share it.
Did you teach yourself how to build those, or did those come through the classroom?
No, that was more self-taught.
Self-taught.
Like
Yep.
the most valuable classes I took in computer science were algorithms and data structures, and then mathematical foundations of computer science, which are more theoretical.
Right. So then after college, you guys also worked on a number of projects, several of which I thought were super interesting. One that you mentioned in your post was it was a product that would be basically a point-of-sale credit card swiper.
You should check it out. But then we just, I don't know, we kind of abandoned the idea because we were making it, we were making this like, basically point of sale. It was just like you plug in a USB credit card swiper to a laptop and go to a website, and it would be the point of sale for one of our friends who was starting a yogurt shop in Philadelphia. And actually, our original like Venmo bank account said like Yogurino on it, which is the name of this yogurt shop. And I think that's how we got like our credit card processing deal. They thought we were a yogurt company.
So one of my favorite stories from there was you and Iqram both applied for a part-time job as bartenders, and they asked for management or personal references, and you each put down each other as the reference on the application.
Yeah, I remember like we were in this bar drinking, and we were like, "Yo, we should be bartenders and make some extra cash." And neither of us had professional references, so we were like literally sitting next to each other, and we were roommates at the time. So for our professional references, like we put each other, and we had the same address. And it was fun.
So they didn't call you back for that job?
No.
So moving on to Venmo.
I remember actually afterwards too, thinking like I was talking to Iqram, I was like, how the hell did they not even like call us back? Like we're so overqualified for this job. Like they at least got a call back.
A couple of Penn graduates to be bartenders. So when you were starting up Venmo, how did you guys originally divide up tasks? I mean, how did you and Iqram, for people that are starting companies and thinking about, I have a co-founder, how did you guys think about, you're going to do this, I'm going to do that, here are our roles?
Neither of us is very good at rules. So it was just, we had a backlog of a ton of work to do, and both were basically working 24/7, and when he would get tired of something, I would pick it up, and vice versa. So we were fortunate in that we both were capable and interested in doing a lot of different things. So it was pretty fluid, and it was a lot about like tempo and just finding the thing to work on that you felt like you were going to work on for the longest and most intensely.
And then over time, did you guys kind of codify that a little more, or to this day still it's pretty loose?
Still pretty loose. I mean, Iqram spends probably like a little bit more time with he definitely spends more time with like the product and design team. I spend a little bit more time with the engineering team, but we both kind of have our hands in everything.
So one of the things that's key for a lot of companies, obviously, is hiring. And as you and Iqram started to build out the team, you have to bring on other people. What lessons did you learn about kind of hiring, and what was sort of the biggest mistake you would say you guys made in terms of hiring?
I mean, it's tough to talk about mistakes without talking about people. So I'll try to stick to like the good stuff.
Yeah. Well,
I think the thing with hiring is like always be hiring. I remember when we have a couple guys who it's going to be their 3-year anniversary in like a month or so, and when we first were moving to New York, I think we were here like building out our first New York office and like literally putting up like drywall and stuff. And we walked outside on the street, and we had on Venmo t-shirts, and this guy walked by. He's like, "Yo, Venmo, I love Venmo. Do you guys work there?" We're like, "Yeah." And he turned out to be a computer science student, at Columbia who just graduated. We were like, yo, you should come work at Venmo. He's like, I got my own startup, but I have a bunch of friends that you should talk to. So he referred 3 people that we hired like a week later, previous friends, and then he eventually himself joined like 4 months later, and he also referred like, I don't know, probably 10 other people. So that was just like a guy, yeah, we met him on the street because we were wearing Venmo t-shirts and he liked Venmo. So I guess the lesson there is like, build a product that people love and then always wear the t-shirt. And like, hire people who are excited about the product. Another lesson from that is like, hiring people right out of school, I think is a great thing to do. We do a lot of that. We spend a lot of time getting involved in like college recruiting stuff. Just because particularly for engineers, it's really hard to hire engineers away from other companies. There's like a pretty short window for that. And usually that stuff comes through referrals. So like if you don't have a referral network, I think going like the university route is pretty good. Another guy a good hiring story. I remember when we were looking for office space like a year and a half ago. I was like riding the elevator down from a space, and the broker who was showing us the space was like, "What do you guys do? Like, what's the company?" I was like, "Venmo," and he was like, "Oh, cool. I like Venmo. Like, one of my buddies got me on that. He's at another startup." And I was like, "Oh, who's your friend? What startup is he at?" And it turned out he was a software engineer, and I was like, "Yo, put me in touch with him," and then we connected and ended up hiring him. So it's like another case of just like random encounter with some guy in an elevator talking about the product leading to the hire.
There's so many people that tell us like software engineers don't like hang out on LinkedIn. They're like in these dark corners of the web. You have to like turn over rocks, and they know where each other hang out. They're on like GitHub and like developer forums. And
I mean, it's tough with the internet because there's no competitive advantage there. Everyone has the same access to the same information,
right.
Which I think is why, like, this is the same thing I think about finding an apartment. Like, you kind of have to hit the streets if you want to find something that no one else is going to find.
Right. So, you know, I can say it because it's just us now here, but I remember sitting in that room on 7th Avenue in like late 2011 and 2012 when the Venmo app was, I think a year or so, maybe 18 months into its life, and the usage wasn't quite what we'd hoped for. You know, it wasn't getting huge pickup, but now, in the last kind of year, 18 months, it's really picked up a ton. So what was the magic? Like, what do you think's happened to make the usage really tip and the adoption just?
Well, actually, the growth is not that different. It's just exponential growth, percentage month over month, and now it's a big enough base where it's a lot of people.
It matters more, yeah.
So if you look at the growth, like historically, it's always been pretty much the same. It just takes time.
Just a compounding effect.
Yeah.
So, but there's nothing like in the last, like you guys can't point to anything significant in the last like year, 18 months that you think has kind of changed the dynamic in terms of usage.
I mean, not like the biggest thing that we did was instead of moving from SMS to an app and having a public news feed. The news feed just drives tons of engagement and like all the social features, but those have been part of it for over 18 months, probably like closer to 3 years.
So then today, how does the Venmo, for those who don't know, Venmo is combined with Braintree, and then Braintree has recently got combined with eBay and PayPal. How does the core Venmo app differentiate from PayPal's service and app? Or do you guys think about that? Is that something that the two companies worry about, or it's just each one has their own user base?
I mean, I think different people are attracted to each, and like PayPal is sort of, I would say Venmo is like, I guess it's more like Venmo. I was going to say a subset, but so Venmo, you can't send money internationally, you can't pay like order ahead with merchants, which are some things you can do with the PayPal app. You can use both to pay your friends, and then Venmo you can share your payments, which you can't do in the PayPal app. So
it's more social.
So it's more social. So they do like a different set of things. There are like features of a PayPal account, which we want to figure out how to bring to a Venmo account, like the ability to pay. Like I just renewed my Dropbox subscription. I pay with PayPal. I use PayPal in Uber. I use PayPal when I use StubHub. And they're like a lot of cool things you can do with a PayPal account that you can't do with a Venmo account that are beyond sending payments to other individuals. So like that's the stuff that we do talk about. Like how do we bring that to Venmo users?
Is there a dollar limit on how much you can send on Venmo versus PayPal? Are they similar? Wow.
I think the
Hello. Careful there. The stage is pretty narrow. You gotta really.
I had the
tread
schedule
carefully.
mixed up, so.
it's cool.
So Iqram has now joined us, as you can tell.
So there's got to be a better question. I don't know what the difference between the dollar limits are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the things we talked about earlier, and without sharing maybe too many specifics, what are some of the funniest things you guys have seen, other than his that people have paid for on Venmo? Like what do people share in your feed that you're like, really?
Well, I thought a funny payment was I was running late for this event, and someone in the Wall Street Journal is here, and she was like, oh, right there. And she's like, hey, we got to take a picture because, we're about to talk. And then Venmo, I call it Venmo. Kortina sent me a text, and he's like, yo, cute Wall Street Journal girl is, I'm modifying it a little. But, and then he goes, but you know what I told her? I said, we'll wait for you because we're like salt and pepper. And then I sent him a payment for 10 grand because I thought that was good. Because we started Venmo together, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So I thought, are there other funny things you guys have seen in the feed? People are like paying each other for.
Well, let's look at the feed right now.
By the way, if you want your
payment,
name called out, make a public
Jamie
payment.
Sweet paid Philip Reich for being awesome.
Okay.
Lindsay West paid Charge Devin, swagged out Niagara Falls Hotel. Booze is the next one. Ooh, I gotta do Venmo friend. Best night of your life. Kale and green beans. Cheese. B-ball jersey. Soccer ball emoji. Trophy emoji.
Really?
World Cup starts at 4 o'clock today. There's just all sorts of good stuff going on in here. So
Yeah, there's some oversharing.
There's no one payment that I could point to as the best payment of all time.
I'm sure we could find one.
There's some good ones in here.
All right, well, while you guys look, we'll come back to that. So let's talk about something I'm sure a lot of folks wonder about, which is the Lucas ad campaign. Lucas uses Venmo. Where did that come from? I mean, how'd you guys come up with that? What was the kind of driving force behind this? And actually the Bedford stop here on the L was one of the first places that was really canvassed with those ads.
So we were all me, Neil, and Kortina, we were all in this room in our office, and we were evaluating tons and tons of ad campaigns. It took about 6 months for us to hit that spark, and so we had this advertising agency that was helping us, and they were working with us, and they would send us ideas, and it's kind of interesting because a lot of those ideas that they had were ideas that we had thought of, like Venmo is the best way to split concert tickets, or like it's Thanksgiving is coming up. Use Venmo to settle up the gifts you're buying, like buying your friends, or Christmas is coming up. Use Venmo. And when we had initially discussed those types of ideas, we were like, maybe this is too straightforward, because we wanted to stand out.
Well, the point of ad is to catch somebody's attention, and none of these ads none of the things that we saw presented to us were going to catch our attention. So we were all in a room after, and so we were in a little conference room on a call, and Kortina and Neil were just finishing up probably like a 2.5 hour discussion.
Who is Neil, by the way?
Neil's our creative director.
Okay.
Works with us, and probably like a 2.5 hour discussion about this campaign that they had we were going to launch for Christmas. And the night before that, or 2 nights before that, I was out with Lucas, like he's a software engineer at Venmo, and we hung out for the first time. He just started. It was his first month into Venmo, and I was walking by, and I had a meeting with Neil and Kortina afterwards. We were just going to discuss some product stuff, and Lucas was pouring coffee in the kitchen, and I was like, man, this guy Lucas uses Venmo. So we walked into the room, and it was like I looked at Neil and Kortina's faces. I was like, yo, what's going on, guys? And it was like, ugh, we just had this 2.5 hour meeting, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we unanimously agreed that we got to run this ad. Lucas uses Venmo.
Yeah, I remember. So we were talking about like this ad agency want to spend $100,000 on these BuzzFeed ads, and nobody's going to read. And then Iqram's like, if we're going to spend $100,000, let's do something interesting, like out of home, and just keep it simple. Like Lucas uses Venmo, and then we heard it. Everyone was like, whoa, that's good.
And that's it, because like, and if y'all meet Lucas. Man, he's a stand-up guy, and I want to be like him. and
You want to be like Lucas.
He's just a nice guy, and he works very hard, and he treats his friends with respect. He's kind, he's giving. He's like a very sharp smile.
He's got beautiful skin.
This poor guy. I mean, like,
the story is good because. So we had this idea, then Neil comped something up in Photoshop, and then we all went out to the streets and had it on our phone, and we just went up to like 50 people, and we're like, if you saw this, what would you think? And they were like, what's Venmo? And we were like, all right, good.
No, yeah, and actually,
exactly.
what was the weird part about it was we actually had to take him out. You know how like you're trying to win over a client or something, you go out, we all, I think Lynchy was there, right? Were you there at the dinner when we went to the Breslin? We have some... Okay, yeah, we were working there.
Audience participation.
But, okay, someone in the audience here may have been at the dinner. I don't know, maybe not. Say it, who's on FaceTime right now? But we all went out to dinner. We're like, yo, Kortina and I are like, yo, we got to make sure we close this deal right here. We got to ask him whether he wants to be in these ads. Because we wanted to get his permission.
He has to sign off on it. And I remember we were at the Venmo Brew House on 25th Street. And I remember we were saying to Lucas, we were like, Lucas, we're going to have your face all over the subway. Everyone in New York is going to be like, no, you're going to be a celebrity. Like, it's going to be crazy. Are you ready for this? And he was like, yeah, I'm down. All right.
Sure. Sounds good. We're like,
wow.
And you know what? The fame hasn't changed him.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, what's happened now? Does he get recognized in the street? People are like, you're Lucas? Or
I think he wears his baseball cap lower.
Okay.
You know, keep a little
He has
profile.
like an agent at CAA now, or he's staying out of the limelight?
He stays out of the limelight.
Okay. Well, I mean, certainly, it is one of those campaigns that people, that generated memes and
The Lucas thing I loved it.
Amazing.
It was such a joyful thing to be a part of.
Look, I mean, that's obviously been great. Now that you guys are, what's that? Everything?
I just saw Ikram's shoes.
I didn't even see the shoes. Can we see the shoes?
We'll walk around after this.
How do you guys, today you guys are part of Braintree or combined with Braintree and now part of eBay and PayPal. Do you work a lot with those other units, or is it like you guys really stand on your own and do your own thing and they let you kind of operate independently?
For different things, it's different. So for like the core Venmo app, that's pretty much the Venmo team like owning a bunch of that work. But then there's like other big strategic initiatives we have, like how do we get Venmo accepted everywhere and make it into something you can use for more than just paying your friends. And what's fortunate about our situation is we work with Braintree, who has all the best mobile apps, and PayPal, who has thousands of merchant relationships all over the world. So we can kind of connect the consumer network that we're building with the merchant network that they have built.
So do you think point of sale, is that a major priority for you guys? Is that like the next big frontier?
I don't know.
Well,
I'm not that excited about point of sale. I like Uber. Uber is, I think, is cooler than point of sale.
Well, one of the companies that's in the point of sale business now is Square, and
Right.
and they're doing a pretty good job of replacing the existing sort of credit card swiping devices. So
Should we tell him we already talked about this before he walked in, or just let him go?
Oh, you did? Okay, sorry.
It's okay, go on.
Well, no. So the answer is yes. We want to be in the point of sale business, but we want to be powering the point of sale business because you should be able to use Venmo. If you have all of your information placed on this device or whatever, you should be able to use it wherever you make a transaction. And so a point of sale is a great point for you to be using your Venmo account. It's very similar to Facebook or Twitter, where instead of signing up for something, you just connect to Facebook. Probably a year from now, you'll be able to connect to Venmo. It'll pull in all of your friends. It'll have all of your financial information. It'll have your feed, and we may not use Facebook.
Do people, you must have a really rich database at this point of transaction data. You see trends in terms of where people are spending their money. Do people approach you and try to kind of purchase that data from you, or try to figure out ways to leverage it to figure out, hey, like what's trending or what's...
Not really. I mean, all that you can see all that in the public feed. So if somebody wanted to do a research that, they could just analyze what's going on in the public feed.
But I can't see what your friends are buying, right? You only see what your own network of friends...
No, on the public feed you can see
everything?
If people share with the world, yeah.
Okay.
A lot of people do that.
So in terms of, you guys have now been at this since 2009, right? Was when the company was first kind of hatched. What are kind of, for other entrepreneurs that might be out there, one or two lessons you guys have learned in kind of the 4 or 5 years you've been at it now that you think might be helpful for others that are starting or building companies?
Well, the major lesson I've learned is, I packaged this up in a sentence. It's very simple. I don't know why I'm going towards the microphone, but I just want to make sure everyone hears this. Dream until it comes true, because it will.
Things that, this is something one of our investors, Samir, said to me once that was like a good takeaway. I just want to work with cool people.
There you have it. Should we open it up to questions from the audience? Hey. I think there's a microphone. Oh, there it is. Thank you.
So I enjoyed hearing about the genesis of Venmo and all that, but I didn't hear a lot about what you guys thought about the cashless society and all that going forward. Do you see that is a trend that we're seeing coming forward? I read a McKinsey report a little while ago. It's like $25 trillion in payments.
Absolutely.
About to come on board.
My friend, I was out the other day, and one of my friends was like, "Yo, who are your major competitors? Like, do you feel like you got all these competitors out there?" And I said, "Yeah, we've got two competitors, Facebook and Cash." So yes, we are. Actually, last night I met someone on Venmo. Actually, I knew him, and I Venmo'd him for all of his cash, $585. I just took all the cash out of his wallet. And I Venmo'd him.
Okay.
Because now he's on Venmo, and it makes his life easier. It's going to make all of our lives. Have you seen a bartender trying to count the amount of money they make, or after a shift? It's a nightmare. It's like tick, 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 tick. I mean, we should have bartenders as our accountants because they know how to move and manipulate money. But we shouldn't have to deal with that.
So I mean, in terms of to that question, then, in terms of future trends, the year's 2020 or 2025, do we still have cash in our wallets?
Absolutely not.
Okay. we all use the Venmo app. What do you think about NFC? Do you think that's going to be, that's been around for a lot, near field communication, it's the technology that lets you kind of, hold the phone up and pay remotely, just using proximity sensors. Is that that hasn't taken off? Is that going to be a thing, or you don't see it?
It depends on what phones want to do. Like Apple, it seems like Apple still hasn't gotten onto the NFC bandwagon.
Yep.
And they're using now you know that Apple is exposing the fingerprint as an API. So you know how raise your hand if you use the fingerprint unlocking feature.
Really? Wow.
Okay, so now what Apple is doing, apparently in one of their announcements, they're going to release that as an API. So NFC is gone because now I just use my finger anywhere I want to pay or whatever. I mean, that's why we call it Venmo Touch.
Other than that, did you guys see anything in the recent Apple announcements that you thought would have impact on your business? I mean, what were the most significant things that you guys saw out of the updates to iOS?
I think it was the last question, but
Okay.
I thought it was a really exciting conference because they released a bunch of new tools for developers. So they opened up a lot of different APIs. Historically, the iPhone has been like a pretty closed sort of environment to develop in, and there's not a lot of opportunities for your app to interact with other apps as much as it's the case with like Android, for example. And they just opened up a lot of stuff. So I think it was a pretty exciting set of announcements.
Did anyone else have a question?
Yeah, any other questions? Sorry.
We only had one. We have time for one more. Go ahead.
What about drugs?
Like using Venmo for drugs?
Not specifically. How do you see that, or a drug, or any kind of illicit payment still requires cash, or it's at higher levels now, Bitcoin, right, with like Silk Road and stuff like that?
Well,
do you see all those
yeah, we don't.
gray market type economies being a barrier to being completely cashless and therefore, on the surface, public in the way that minimum limits are?
So the way we handle that sort of situation is we abide by all of the rules wherever we operate. So for example, if we were in a place that allowed drug transactions to take place electronically, you can use Venmo. But in America, for example, we don't support we don't support transactions for drug exchanges because it's against the law. So but at the same time, it's very tough to know what's happening. So we just try to we want to be aware of how environments work, and we want to make sure that we're playing by the rules, because eventually, we dictate the rules. So whatever we all decide is how people will use Venmo, and then that's kind of how we deal with that.
Great. Do we have time for one more, or is that it? Okay. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Kevin.